Good evening. Do you hear me? Sorry for 15 minutes delay in our program, but you all experience the security measures. It take a bit longer. Now we are starting. So Your Excellencies, dear friends and guests, welcome to today's event. It is organized by the Bulgarian Center of Women in Technologies under one of the formats the center has, She is Me. And I'll introduce our She of tonight a bit later, but first I want to introduce the topic. And the topic today is the female leadership in time of transformation. One may ask why we need to speak specifically about the female leadership in those times, and I'll give you my perspective. We are living in a world that is under redefinition at the moment. We see many things that are going on. This is the of course, COVID crisis, but also global connectedness, the democratization of the access to the information, and of course, climate crisis. All those are stimulus and drivers for finding new solutions, totally different compared to what we have experienced till yesterday, and what have been ruling the world in the business, in society, and also on political level. And we are witnessing and also participating in this fundamental change that leads to short horizons, to insecurities, to unprecedented innovation, and it is really a birth of a new world. And who better than a woman knows how to give birth and also how to accompany life to its growth and to the self-sufficiency. That's why we believe, and I believe, that women are playing a critical role in this process. And supporting the female leadership in all different dimensions is critical. And that's why the topic of today is female leadership in time of transformation. And I'm especially pleased to introduce and to have our guest of honor on this topic, Her Excellency Madame Florence Robine. She's the ambassador of the Republic of France in Bulgaria. This is a long postponed meeting at the She is Me format. But now this is the second best moment, and even better because France is, as you all know, is at the moment heading the presidency of the Council of Europe, and of course we'll talk on different topics, at least what I've prepared tonight. I'm happy to have you with us, Ambassador Robine.
Merci.
Of course, we'll talk on all these trends, geopolitical, European, and things that I've touched upon in my introduction. But I want to start with your personal path. You are professor in physics and chemistry, at least what is available from your public biography. And professionally, you've been appointed to the rank of Inspector General for the French Ministry of Education. Then, in the time, you've held the positions Chief Executive to the local educational authorities in Guana, in Rouen, and Créteil. In 2014, you were appointed as Director General for Schools in the Ministry of National Education. You also served as an expert on the European Commission's working group for math, science and technology. For sure, that's a remarkable professional career. What is not visible, though, in your formal biography is how you did it there, how you made it. And what were the challenges that you were facing on your path? Tell us more about this that we cannot read in Google.
Thank you. First of all, dear Sasha, thank you for inviting me to this very important and special meeting. I'm very happy to be here and to have this discussion with you. So, it's quite a difficult question and personal one, but I will try to answer it. I will say that the first challenge I have to face was to be the difficulty of being a woman in the field of hard science and also in some position you mentioned. I remember that, for example, we were only 2 girls in my university class in theoretical physics, and it was not so easy, really. And in a lot of positions you mentioned, I was the first female appointed to these jobs. It seems quite incredible. Let's say in 2010 to be, for example, the first and the only woman to be the director and rector of the University of French Guiana, for example, in the middle of the rainforest in South America. But definitely it was an amazing experience and very useful. I want also to say that coming from a middle-class family, getting these positions was not so self-evident. And I was very lucky, I said, to have the support of my teachers and also from the state. Well, let's say that I was quite a good pupil, a good student with good grades. And so the state provided me the opportunity to be accepted in let's say, a university course of excellence with very selective. And after that, to be paid for 3 years just to become a teacher. And it was, of course, really important for me. Definitely, I will not be what I am today if I had not this wonderful possibility. And a very personal answer, but I think that a lot of women face this difficulty. It was quite demanding and difficult to achieve a personal balance between career and the family life. Perhaps, however, I had 4 children, and that was really a job also. It was really a job.
It is a job.
And it is still a job.
Yeah, it's still a job.
You know, it never ended, never. But I'm quite happy to say that my children, they always support me in my professional choices, even if sometimes it means that I was not so available for them that I would like to be.
I know the story myself. Yeah, that's really, thank you for sharing this more personal dimension, but I believe that's important because sometimes we see the titles, we see people in power, and it is possible to forget that behind that is also another part that is related to lots of work and challenges as every single person has in life. But I want to also share facts from your portrait from a bit different angle. You've been highly recognized for your work and your contribution. You've been awarded France's highest decoration, and you are Chevalier des L'Ordre National de la Légion d'honneur.
D'honneur, Legion of Honor. Yeah.
Excuse me, my French is,
Merci.
As well as Commandeur de l'Ordre des Palmes Académiques. And is there a female expression of the term commandeur? I'm provoking you because this commandeur for woman invites me to think that eventually in the society still the commander, the leader is associated with a man. And can you please share how is in France? What is the male-female balance actions that are, of course, done on a policy level, but also within the business community, in the society, because there is still a way to go in Europe and in the world.
Yes, definitely. Thanks for this question. First of all, I think that you ask a very good and interesting first question, because there is a lot of discussion in France about whether and how to feminize the names of jobs on positions and qualification. And commander is a very good example, because there is no female word for commander. And you know, there is a lot of resistance also on this matter, because some people are defending a supposed purity of language, and I really think that it is not an incidental issue, because language is really the mirror of our society, of our habits, of our values. And so the question of feminization of jobs is really an important one. So I think that it's quite the same in Bulgarian. You will tell me, but I think unlike in English, in French we have different words for jobs, or for a lot of words, if it's related to men or if it's related to women. And it's a case of number of the jobs names, for example. It's, let's say a director, for example, a director. You say a director in English, it could be a man, could be a woman, but in French you have the word directeur for a man and directrice for a woman.
Commandeur and commandrice.
And no, it doesn't exist. Directeur is quite the only word I know in this case, because the female name for a lot of jobs simply doesn't exist. Why? Because nobody was used to see women in this position.
Exactly.
A good example is ambassador. In English you say an ambassador, but in French an ambassador is only a man, of course. So you can say an ambassadrice, but until this very late years, the ambassadrice was only the name of the ambassador's wife. And an ambassador, a female ambassador, no name for that. But now, of course, I am an ambassadrice, and I'm not the wife of anybody. Sorry. And so I think it's quite an important issue. But
Also in Bulgaria, by the way, because...
You have the same problem, because poslanik, you say poslanik, but poslanička, nobody use, nobody use this word.
Directorka, and you directly associate with the school director, but not
only
with the corporation director.
Exactly, we have the same problem.
Or president does not even have a female. So grammatically you can construct it, but it's very artificial. So it is the same situation.
So I think it's a very interesting question. But coming back to your question about the balance, the gender balance, and how can we deal with that, first of all, I will say that it's also a question of education. And I was personally responsible when I used to work in the Ministry of Education for the introduction of curriculum to schools and to promote gender equality since the early age, and also to combat gender stereotypes. For example, in order not to confine little girls to traditional female games, only playing dolls in school and so on, but also promoting the involvement of young girls and women in the field of hard science, in digital science and so on. Because the figures, for example, I think we can talk later about it, but the figures of the involvement of girls and women in hard science, they are awful all over the world, and especially in Europe. And it's also a question, a very important question, talking about transition, talking about the future.
Actually, sorry for interrupting you, I don't know exactly the French figures. You must probably check and know this.
I have one.
But in Bulgaria, Bulgaria is leader in Europe for female in the digital industries, as also for girls, young women in the engineering jobs.
Exactly.
But guess what happened? There are 31% women in the digital industry. When you look and zoom it into how many of those professionals are starting their own businesses and what is the funding that goes for supporting female enterprises, figures are totally different. You have 10% female co-founded enterprises, and I know the figures in France are even worse. There
Exactly.
is lots to be done.
There's a lot to be done, and definitely I think it's very important. I got the figures here coming from UNESCO for the countries, the G20 countries, and the figures are amazingly low, and of course in France, but everywhere. Women, for example, working in data or artificial intelligence sector, we have less than 30%, 22, even in some countries less than 20, and it's really important. And I think that this promotion is really important. And I also want to say that we need to see more women everywhere. That means in different positions, jobs, taking responsibilities, and we have to promote them. That it's a question of role model, but role model is a very important fact. Just to make the young women a little bit more confident in themselves. Yes, she is doing that, so it's possible. I must be confident in myself, and I deserve also this opportunity and this. And definitely during the French presidency of the Council of European Union, we will work on this, especially on reducing the persistent gender gap in labor market. Also a question of wages. This gap is quite huge. and we can tackle this issue, I'm so sure. We will work on a special directive to have equal pay for equal job and equal responsibilities. And I think that EU can do a lot of things in this matter. And we will also work on a proposed directive to improve gender balance on company boards. Because it's also a question of position. It's good to have women in all companies and different jobs, but it's also very important to have women in higher position in the companies.
Those are role models, the formal role models.
Exactly.
You mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Yeah. It is a big topic, and maybe to school and to ruling framework, the policy framework, of course we need to add the family, because the yes and no's that you normally don't question in your life till late years, if ever at all, are coming from the education, from the example that you get at home. And some of the prejudices, in my view, that we still see in the society are also coming from the fact that the parents are not necessarily are continuing some traditional thinking from the old days. But you've mentioned some of the priorities specifically related to female agenda, equality, and that's very good news. Hopefully it will be achieved already in the next couple of months on European level. And of course, we know the priorities of the French presidency. In addition to what is the formal agenda, there are lots of ad hoc big challenges. We have the crisis in Ukraine, we have the electricity crisis in Europe and in the world. We have the public reactions against COVID measures in many points in Europe. So this is also on the shoulders of the French leadership at the moment. So what do you expect to be the outcome of this, of the French presidency? Of course, to the extent we can discuss it here in this room.
Well,
and you've mentioned about the women, that's something that...
Yes, these are important topics, of course, and we indeed, we will tackle this issue during our presidency. First of all, you mentioned, for example, Ukraine, energy crisis and so on. Well, it's also a very important priority for France to build a more sovereign Europe and a more autonomous Europe, and that is quite related to this topic. That means a stronger Europe capable to really capable of action of the fields of security and defense, control of borders and so on. So, and also that means solidarity between EU members, and definitely we have seen in act this solidarity in the previous day and at the moment, especially about the crisis in Ukraine, and we will continue on this difficult path. And talking about autonomy, I think it's a very important topic especially for young people, because it's, of course, it's not only in terms of energy, but energy is a very important one, but also about electronic components, chips, for example, the Chips Act would be very important. Digital economy also. And manufacturing capabilities. So it means also jobs and future for young people here in Europe. And that will be also very important. But I want also to say, because sometimes it can be misunderstood, that this topic must also be connected to our main huge challenge, which is the climate issue. And that will be one of our most important topic and priority during the French presidency, because there is no alternative, and we need to work on this topic. And I really want to say that the main question is how to reconcile the economic development and the climate ambition, and definitely it is possible, and we will work on it. I just want to remind you and everybody here in the room that the European Union is the first economic and political bloc to have set to itself the objective of climate neutrality in 2050. It's a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge, and I want also to say that achieving this challenge does not mean producing less or consuming less, but producing better and consuming better. And that means that we have to continue to innovate in technology, in alternative and green energy, in a lot of things, how to use in a more intelligent way electricity for in all possible fields, and also to have the highest possible level of decarbonized electricity. And that open a large field of innovation and intelligence and opportunity for young people here in our European countries, and especially here in Bulgaria, definitely. So I think it's also something very not only important but fascinating, and it could be a huge opportunity for a lot of people.
It is happening already. I have a big respect about Europe's concept to create this collaborative research network, collaborative art network, the ambition, even the policy framework Fit for 55 that is on the agenda at the moment. But of course, this is meeting also the challenge that some of the people everywhere in Europe, not specifically in Bulgaria or in France, are laying back with the skills, because this is entirely new environment, and it requires everybody, no matter if those are people in the educational age or in the end of their career, to restart, to learn, to qualify. And it is more than ever a responsibility of the formal, informal leadership to really unite efforts for this, if you want, make as much as possible people ready to support this agenda. Yes. And I think that because this is part of this insecurities, instability, that in my view, that we are evident everywhere in Europe, and not only in Europe. But I was thinking, and hopefully you agree with me, that the compass in times unstable like today are values. And what we have as Europeans, and we can step on, and I know France is, of course, in a way a home in some aspect of this type of initiative, is really returning back to the European values,
Yes,
returning
definitely.
back to what Europe was created for.
Exactly.
Do you think that this is something that can be a driving force, because we see different voices, we hear different voices in Europe these days because of everything that we've debated earlier?
Well, definitely I think it's quite the most important achievement of Europe. I think that Europe has a unique history. I think it's the only, let's say, organization I know that is based on a common set of humanist values. Please, I think it's important to remind everybody that Europe has invented humanism. Europe has invented philosophy. Europe has, I think, has invented human rights. Of course, we have to deal a little bit more to really work on it and implement it everywhere. But I think it's very important. Of course, Europe is also quite a heterogeneous set of peoples with different history, for sure, different languages, different cultures. But and some of our countries have been at war between each other for centuries. Okay, that's true. But let us make this difference a richness. And I think it's really possible if we base this richness on our common values. And that's what Europe really means. And that's why the voice of Europe is also so important in the world, and sometimes quite difficult to share and to hold. That's true, but it's our wall. I think it's quite very important, and that makes Europe and Europeans unique. So we have to be proud of it, but it's also a burden, let's say that. It's also a responsibility we share. And the question of culture is quite important too. For example, if you are looking at the main priorities of all of the EU Commission, of all the different EU presidencies we have, culture is always very important, and definitely that's why EU is really promoting literature, arts, music, and so on in every country. And Europe has also a responsibility to facilitate access to culture for everybody, to all people, and to the whole different cultures too.
Actually, French experience in that aspect is really a good lesson for many. I was thinking, preparing for this meeting today, that preservation of the European heritage is also one of the elements for people to be able to self-identify themselves with Europe, with European heritage, and of course culture, both the traditional one, but also supporting the contemporary artists is, in my view, maybe the most important, or not to classify them, but one of the important grounds to also bridge some of these balances, because the symbolic language of art brings people that are in different positions together.
Yes,
and Of course, we are also having in Bulgaria the self-confidence being an old place with really lots of tradition and big culture, I would say.
Yeah.
We are stepping now on 7 cultural layers here. That are under us, and but still, of course, we may have some wish this heritage to be preserved in a different way, in a more modern way. Can you share, if you know, of course, it's a little bit more expert topic, what is the model in France? How this is done? Can we take advantage of some of the experience that you have?
Well, this question of the cultural heritage, I think, is really a central question in my country, definitely. I think since André Malraux, the first Minister of Culture appointed by Le Général de Gaulle just after the Second World War. So definitely it's really important, and we invest a lot in culture, and there is a state investment in culture to help not only the big, of course, the big companies and the museums and so on, but also, as you said, the modern creation and the contemporary scene and so on. So I think it's quite difficult, because you have to find the good path between, let's say, the state culture and the innovation and so on. But I think that we are quite used now to have projects, to invest in projects, to help also the young artists. And it was so important, for example, during the COVID crisis, because during the COVID crisis and the lockdown, everything was closed for, I don't know, weeks, months, and it was a real disaster for, of course, for theaters, cinemas, music halls and so on, but also for the artists themselves.
But I remember that this was already in the first month after the lockdown last year, when President Macron announced a significant budget. If I remember correctly, I didn't check again what was it 1 year from now, but like 7 billion for supporting the independent artists and stage, just for those people to survive. And this was first in Europe, which of course was not only political signal, but also clear sign for the importance of the sector, of the art sector, and of the people that are creators, that are artists. So this is something that for sure is very critical.
And definitely, I think during this sanitary crisis and during this lockdown, we realized that culture is so essential. And when you lack all these opportunities, well, life is not so happy, definitely. Of course, meeting people, but also having the opportunity to access to culture and cultural events, and it's really, really important. So I think it's also a great time to reflect on this issue among EU members, because it's also a question of solidarity and to help each other and to have a common understanding of the role of culture in our countries and for our people. So important.
Yeah, and hopefully the theaters and the art places will be open with no restrictions very soon. Let's wish this.
Let's wish that.
want to return you to to your core. You are an expert in the education, and your biography speaks, of course, a lot about this. What we can do to prepare the next generation for the world of the future? I personally believe that the programs and educational models that are established and known from yesterday are not working anymore. So what is your, let's say, expert opinion on this?
Well, I want to share some figures. I bring here some figures. I think it's quite interesting, and you certainly know this one, but a recent study has shown that about 85% of the jobs of 2030 do not yet exist. And more difficult, about 60% of the jobs which will disappear are at the moment held by women. Yeah. So it's really amazing, and it's a difficult issue we have to face. So definitely the future is shifting. But I don't think that we should be afraid of it, because we know quite well the most promising trends that will be acquiring, of course, solid hard skills, let's say that, technical skills, for example. I was talking about the involvement of young people in digital field and so on. I think it's quite important, but also, as we all know, developing soft skills, for example, the ability to work in team, the ability to innovate, to adapt, all that sort of things. So, how are we preparing in the right way our kids, our students, our pupils? Well, I think that to do that, we must propose them not only to acquire knowledge, which of course is completely essential and mandatory, but what sort of knowledge? That's also a good question. But also giving them the opportunity to develop these soft skills in practical way. That means, for example, in complex tasks, in problem solving, in entrepreneurship, and well, it's really let's say it's quite a U-turn in schools if we have to really implement that way of teaching and in our schools. So I think also that trying to answer your question, what we will have to do to prepare the next generation to these tomorrow's challenges. For me, because I was completely confronted to this difficulty when I was first a teacher, and after that, let's say, a stakeholder in education. Another important challenge is how we will succeed to reduce the gap between pupils and students coming from the, let's say, the mainstream society and those coming from underprivileged areas. And all the countries are facing this difficulty. Because these inequalities are quite big, but they became bigger. Absolutely. And we have the figures, and they became bigger during the sanitary crisis. I'm so sure that no child must be left behind anywhere. And if they are, it will be a huge social concern for our countries. And I think it's quite of the most important challenge we have to face. And for all these challenges, and for all these reasons, I think that the most important fact we have to do is to think about how we are recruiting and how we are training teachers. Because without teachers, there is no schools, university, there is no preparation of the next generation, there is nothing. And it's so important to have good teachers, well paid, well prepared, able to deliver lessons on modern topics, and also with a high level of pedagogy, and also being able to adapt to their public and to help whatever they are coming from, all the kids and students. That means if they are gifted pupils or if they are kids with special needs, for example. The question of kids with special needs, I think it's a very important issue, because we need a more inclusive school if we want to have a more inclusive society.
For sure. For sure. Because lots of the societal experiences and skills are developed in schools. But it is a challenging task, because practically there is no not a textbook to train how to become a teacher for tomorrow, today. This,
but there are some research.
Yeah, not only research, but also platforms and exchange
exactly.
models. And
exactly.
I've been involved in, there was an European Educational Hackathon, one of the initiatives, and I've been involved in the consultative body. And honestly, big respect about the academic capacity throughout Europe on those programs for the future skills, future education. Art is of critical importance, because you have this changed environment, so to have an art skills, you can react also on this. And ecology, let's not forget, because climate change will knock on the door even stronger of these young people of tomorrow. So it's
and that's why also cooperation between EU member states is so important.
Absolutely.
Even in the field of education, which is of course a national priority and well, capability of course, but I think that it's also very important to exchange ideas. And Erasmus, not only for students but for teachers, that means exchange of teachers coming from different countries and visiting other colleagues and trying to understand how you teach in different countries is also very important.
Hopefully it will be possible, because now it's online eventually, if at all. Yeah. We cannot influence this. Maybe at the end and before giving, let's save some time also for our friends in the room to ask questions, but you are 2 years now in Bulgaria.
More than
so you know Bulgaria, you have been traveling, visiting different places, as I know. And as a diplomat, as an ambassador, but also as someone that have an experience in our country, how you see Bulgaria from a perspective of diplomat, and do you believe that this, what we see as an unlocked potential is not an illusion driven by our patriotic or local things. We believe that it is a lot that can happen for this country. But what is your view on this?
Well, it's quite a difficult question, especially for a diplomat, you know, to to express oneself in a diplomatic way on this difficult question. Very frankly and sincerely, I see Bulgaria as a beautiful country. It was quite surprising for me because I didn't know anything of Bulgaria before coming and visiting the country, and it's really, really a beautiful country with a wonderful culture, amazing landscape, and so on. So yes, a lot of opportunities. But I was also quite surprised to see that this country is still, let's say, inhabited with its demons of the past.
Yeah.
And, everybody is always talking and still talking of the Ottoman yoke, for example. And also the presence of the suffering, which is a real one, of course, suffering of all the suffering during the Soviet period is also on everybody's mind, and also the chaos of the post-communist period. And Bulgaria has not always overcome this issue, I think. So, being a stranger, being a diplomat, loving this country and trying to understand it, I think, like in every country, and we in France have faced the same difficulties, I think, in different periods and so on. I think perhaps it's time to, let's say, to face history in a more rational way. Always very difficult for everybody in every country, and perhaps to develop a common understanding of history, trying to do it, and being able to build the present and also the future on this basis, and also, of course, on the basis of our common European values. But, well, I'm quite confident because I see a lot of changes, a lot of enthusiasms also, especially seeing young people coming back from abroad to participate to the future of Bulgaria, and definitely we need that. We need this enthusiasm and also this strength and involvement, engagement of people. So they can. So it's very important. I think that the main challenge for Bulgaria, but also for a lot of countries in our old Europe, is to offer a positive vision of the future especially for the young generation, so they will be able to find their place in our countries. And to participate and to contribute to the prosperity of the country. But definitely I'm very confident because Bulgaria, as you said, has a lot of potential, and I see it's an amazing country, very beautiful, very beautiful. And also I would say, please don't forget that you are a member and important member of the European family. And European Union is a family with solidarity, with common view on a lot of main issues and with common goals also. and we can all contribute together to the prosperity of this continent, and also to strengthen our understanding of what it means to live together on this planet. And definitely we have a special, I think, way of understanding that, and we have to promote it all together, and all the countries of our continent and of our European Union must contribute to that.
Yeah, I think we are on the way, especially in the last few months, to open up a little bit more to and of course on a grassroots level, on an academic level, on a business level, this integration goes quite well, and hopefully also on a political level this will intensify a bit. But thank you for sharing your enthusiasm about Bulgaria and of course good perspective. Thank you very much. This was what I wanted to ask you, but let's give a chance also to the people in the room to ask questions if they have. You see, Rosanna is my colleague. She will help with the microphone. Can you please introduce yourself before asking the question?
Yes, thank you for the wonderful and very thought-provoking discussion. My name is Yana Peva, and I'm here as a female STEM enthusiast. And my question is connected to the discussion of the climate crisis. I am really happy to see that there is a collaboration effort going on around Europe, but I was wondering also if Europe is going to include its other partner states to this discussion. And by partner states, I mean the countries that it still has influence on from the post-colonial rule. And I know that France is still with quite an influence over countries like Tahiti and islands in the Caribbean. So I'd love to see your perspective and hear how they're going to be involved in this discussion. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for this question. First of all, we have to work a lot among EU members just to have a common understanding of the main goals about climate change and what we have to do together on this purpose. Fit for 55, for example, decarbonized electricity, also renewable energy and so on. We have to invest a lot, and also to have solidarity between members. As you know, for example, not so easy to get rid of coal plants everywhere, and especially here in Bulgaria, but it will be a common effort, and with solidarity, because the main goal is also an average goal for Europe and not a mandatory goal for every country. So it's also a question, as I'm saying, of solidarity. But going directly to your question about what are I think the collaboration between EU and other partners, and especially our neighbors. Perhaps you know that at the moment we have a very important summit in Brussels between EU and African Union, with a lot of heads of governments coming from Africa, because we are completely convinced that we will not succeed alone, that it's not possible. So we definitely have to be a little bit more and more solidar with Africa. We have to invest more in Africa in order to help them to overcome especially this climate change, and also to help them to be more autonomous in green energy and so on. So it's exactly one of the main goals of this summit. So how to bring more investment in Africa, and not only coming from company and technical stuff, but also in training students, in helping also with the question of mobility of young people and so on. So we are completely convinced that we have a responsibility on this field. And especially we are working on this purpose with Africa. And after that we will have also a very important summit with the Indo-Pacific region, which is also an important issue, as you know. And well, we cannot work with all these goals at the same moment, but we are completely aware that it's not only a question that could be solved in Europe. And that's why also l'accord de Paris about the climate change was also an important milestone for this purpose, and we are so happy that the United States is now back. Is in this agreement, the Paris Agreement, because we have to definitely we have to work together.
Actually, this was the reference point during COP26 that took place just a few months ago in November in Glasgow. And Paris Agreement is a reference point, by the way, also for the Egypt meeting next year. So, yeah, let's see. But obviously, Europe is carrying the flag. Yeah.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Hello, thank you for the wonderful discussion. It was great to hear from both of you with your insights. My name is Sveta Doncheva. I work in a venture capital fund focused on prop tech and have a passion for getting to a level of more capital allocators that are women. So I really liked your point where you mentioned that you were a first in many positions, in many instances. And I have two questions really wrapped into one. One is, who was your source of inspiration, or where did you find support as you were in those positions? And one was, what was your role model growing up?
The second one? What
was your role model?
Because you spoke about role models. Thank you.
Well, it's a difficult question because it's not very modest, but I don't know where I get the energy of that, because nobody in my family was like me. I'm quite completely a strange person for everybody in my family, and it's very difficult for them to understand me. I think first of all, my main support, as I said, was my teachers. I really have the great chance to have wonderful teachers who encourage me and push me and say, yes, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Believe me, you will succeed. And I say, okay, if you said so, it must be true. And I don't think I have especially role models. I discovered them after all. A lot of very interesting people. But first of all, it was for me, the energy of coming out the suburbs I was living in, the condition of the people who are living around me, and I don't know. And after that, I really admit a lot of wonderful women working with me. And it was really a huge and interesting experience in every of this position, and especially young women. And I noticed that they are looking at me and they are waiting for me to prove that it is possible. And that's why also I decided to succeed. And they help me when I try to help them in return.
Okay, so any other question?
Hello, my name is Mira Staleva. I'm managing director of Sofia Film Festival, which will be happening in March, but that's another thing. But I have a question to ask you, because you were talking so passionately about the teachers and as a key factor for the future transformation. Do you have some practices in France already? Because I find this as a big problem, how to reform the educational system to have these teachers, which are so kind of open and challenging and well paid. So if you have any experience in this area, I would be very curious to hear.
Well, it's not really my job today, so I think to deal with that, but definitely I think in every country it's a very difficult issue. And looking at the figure of the OECD, we can notice that everywhere the situation and the condition of teachers are not so good. Some of them are better in some countries than others, but in general we definitely face a very important difficulty to recruit people to become teachers. And so I just want to say to all the governments and all the stakeholders that it is important. But in general, it's quite difficult to understand that, because you don't see the result of education just at the moment you are investing in. You will only see the results 10 years after. And so it's very difficult in general to convince the politics and so on to invest in education. But I think it's the most important fact, not the only one. We have a lot of investment also to do, I don't know, in health and care system, also for elder people, and so a lot of things to do in social in the social areas of the society. But definitely I think that the key issue is the question of teacher. OECD is working a lot on this subject, UNESCO also. We have now good papers telling everybody that there are some good practice in this way, but I think that we have to convince, we have still to convince the politics to really put that effort in practice.
We need to convince the politics on
yes,
different
yes,
topics, but that's one of the important
in different topics. That's
to look to the future, not to the now today's situation.
Yeah. And not only to short-term
exactly.
issue, which is very difficult for politics. I can understand that. That means we have to discuss it in a proper way in the whole society. I think it must be a very deep discussion among people in the society, just to understand the situation and to give them and to give support to the politics to do that.
Yeah, that's true, and also to educate the politicians, because you mentioned something very important, that practically those politicians are paying the political price for investing in something that is not...
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
I think it's okay.
If not, I want to thank Ambassador Robine for this open, honest discussion, good discussion, and want to invite all of you to continue informally over a glass of
Water,
wine.
a glass of water.
Yeah. Also a good reason to take off the masks. And yeah, you are invited, and this will be a chance also for some informal exchanges, and thank you for being with us.
Thanks a lot, really. It was such a pleasure. Merci.